I mean, Afghanistan, for the reasons you say, is not the strategic crossroads in the way that we saw it ourselves when the British Empire and the Russian empires were competing in that part of the world in the first round of the Great Game 150 years ago. But it is in a strategic area, of course, and its influence on Pakistan, its influence potentially on Iran, etc., isn't to be disregarded. So having an Afghanistan that is unstable and is a danger to the region does actually matter to us, I believe, in the UK, probably primarily because of Pakistan, because of course, in a sense, foreign policy and domestic policy as it relates to Pakistan are essentially one and the same thing because of the very large community here and our historic links to the country, the nuclear arms and all the rest of it. No one would dispute the strategic importance of Pakistan. The other issue is that Afghanistan has been the field on which regional powers of all kinds, again including ourselves when during the imperial period, have played out their tensions with each other. And one of the reasons that Afghanistan has been unstable for so long is because a range of their neighbours have preferred an unstable Afghanistan to risking an unfriendly one, and one which might fall into what they would see as the opposing camp. And so it matters from that point of view because it is part of a strategic reason, and it could be one of the sparks that could inflame that region. But I think one can step away from the geopolitics in a way, and because in a sense you could make that case around a lot of countries around the world in which we don't have 140,000 foreign troops. And of course we do need to recognise the reason that we went into Afghanistan after 2001 was because of 9/11 and the Al-Qaeda threat. Now you can argue about how well we managed that. Personally, I think one of the reasons I'm upbeat or at least confident about our prospects is because I think at last we brought our ambitions and resources into line, and I don't think they have been before, but we have essentially by increasing one and focusing the other. But essentially, we're there now because we're there. We're there because we went in with the intention to stabilise Afghanistan, and we haven't achieved that goal yet. Now, my view is that we do owe the Afghans themselves. There is a debt of honour to the Afghans themselves. We promised them that we would help them stabilise their country, and they wouldn't be abandoned again as they feel they were after the jihad, as they see it, against the Soviet Union. And if we walk away from them, then they will feel betrayed, and I think they would be justified in doing so. I think there is also another reason. One's always got to be careful about domino theories, but there is an element of truth in them, that the next vulnerable government, the next vulnerable state we spoke to and said, we'll stand beside you in resisting this threat, wouldn't believe us. They might therefore be more inclined to compromise and reach an agreement with an Al-Qaeda-based insurgency, because they wouldn't believe that in the end, the West, the international community, had the determination to see this through. So I think you can argue about whether Afghanistan, I mean, to put it in its absolute crudest almost, you can argue about whether Afghanistan is the right ground on which to be having this particular fight, this particular struggle. For various reasons, it is the ground that has been chosen, chosen by Al-Qaeda and chosen by us to deal with that threat and then try and stabilise that country so it could no longer become a haven for Al-Qaeda or other terrorist movements and not threaten Pakistan and the rest of the world. Having chosen to see this through in Afghanistan, I believe we should see it through, and I think that probably overrides the geopolitical reasons about the importance of Afghanistan itself as a country, although there is a case to suggest that, for example, because of copper deposits, other natural resources, it is actually going to become quite an important country. But that, of course, isn't the reason that we're there. We're there in the end because we said we would see this through, and in my view, we have to.
Lady there.
Michelle Rogers, former Kabul resident. I've got
Hi,
two
Michelle.
questions. Hi, Mark. Two questions. Yep, sure. Tied in with economy and security. Rumour has it 2009, as we all know, has been a hard year, and we know that the average Afghan earns about $2.50 a day, whilst the Taliban are paying them $15 a day to join their troops. I embedded for about 2 months with the Sea Sticker program out in Host Province, and got to meet a lot of different American military there. And they have one major issue, which is we have this training and mentoring program. We bring them into the wire effectively, particularly the Special Forces. The American Special Forces are training the Afghan commandos, yet they're being hit far more often and sustaining far more fatalities and injuries than they ever did before the program, because they now have this belief that there's I guess you can call them double agents. The military, the Afghan soldiers come in because they get a decent pay from the Americans, but they can also still stay true to the Taliban, their true religious beliefs, and earn $15 a day. So there seems to be this terrible, I guess, catch-22. I work for the Taliban, get paid $15. Then I work for the American army, and also the Brits are doing Sea Sticker, and earn good money, get trained well, and get to succeed in killing what they see as the invaders of their country. I mean, it's a difficult position for the British and American military. The Sea Sticker program doesn't seem to be working.
So, sorry, can I just ask, what is your question?
The question is, why are we entering the Sea Sticker program when it doesn't seem to be working? There's an increase of fatalities and injuries within the armed forces since the program started. It's not always in the press, but it's definitely happening.
Do you want to come back on that briefly?
Sure. I mean, having not embedded in Khost, so I'm cautious of getting into this because you probably know more about the subject, this particular subject, than I do. But I think if you look at the overall data, there is anecdotal evidence, but very little broad-based evidence to suggest that that we get a lot of people essentially switching from the armed forces, the police and the army, trained by us, into the insurgency. You hear stories about it, but there's very little evidence. There's very little evidence of it, and that's partly because, and it's one of the problems, that they don't. The representation of the southern Pashtuns in the armed forces is very low. Now that is a problem because exactly that is a problem because, of course, you need armed forces that reflect the ethnic balance of the country, and there are issues of affiliation and loyalty there. But equally, it doesn't. You get the flip side of the point you're making. I mean, actually, the Sea Sticker program, I think again, has not achieved everything it should have done. It's now been reconfigured into the NTMA, NATO training mission, Afghanistan. So it's got a broader remit, will include the police, includes the police more effectively now than the army. And I think if you look at the training, the army has progressed reasonably well over the past few years. The police haven't really progressed because they haven't had the resources put into them. And recruitment and so on hasn't been disciplined. But where they have been taken out, there's a program called the Focus District Development Program, where police forces have essentially been taken out for just a matter of weeks training, I mean a few weeks training, and been replaced in the districts during that period and then gone back in again. What we've seen in Helmand, for example, is a very significant rise in the confidence of the population in the police and indeed in the proficiency of the police. So training does make a difference. So I don't think I would agree with you that Sea Sticker hasn't really worked. You can always find anecdotal evidence, but I don't think the premise of your question that there's this recidivism, if you like, from the forces into the Taliban, there is really widespread evidence of that.
Okay, thank you. There's a gentleman at the back there. Yep. After, yeah.
Thank you very much, Nicholas Meller. One of the challenges that you mentioned in your introduction was really the coordination of aid. And today we had a conference of the civil society, and one of the biggest concerns there was with the acceleration of the military effort, there'll be even more greater pressure to use to blur the distinction between development and what the military are doing, which would potentially undermine a lot of the goodwill that a lot of the development has created so far, and there was major concern amongst civil society about that. How would you reassure civil society, and how would you help to improve the coordination of aid?